let me make sure that my settings are correct. Though I told y'all how to do your settings. Let me make sure mine is actually recording where it needs to. Yes, we are good. All right, so we'll just start off with whoever is going to introduce the podcast and based on the notes that were sent, and we are good to go. Joaquin or Idric, do you want to go ahead and start?
I think Edric.
Welcome.
Okay, there you go.
Everything okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I was gonna turn it over to you. Let's do that again. I'll turn it over to you, Joaquin.
Oh, wait. So I'm or how do I thought you were gonna start the.
Yeah, and then I was gonna introduce you as the co-moderator. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, sorry.
Okay. It's okay. I thought my Wi-Fi might have frozen again.
And really quickly, if we are not, if you are not speaking, if you can just try to take yourself sometimes off of mute. If there's a long time that you're not speaking, just put yourself on mute or something like that. But if you jump in, take yourself off of mute and just continue talking. Okay.
Sounds good. So, hello everybody. My name is Edric Figueroa. I am the Zero Campaigns Director at the Latino Commission on AIDS. And I'm here with my colleague, Joaquin, for the Let's Talk About Sex podcast with Hands United. So Joaquin, I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce yourself and our special guest.
All right. Thanks, Edric. So yeah, I'm Joaquin Gargaño, he, him pronouns. I'm the Director of Southern Health Policy for the Latinos in the South program at the Latino Commission on AIDS, based here in North Carolina, but working throughout the South. And I'm really excited to be here, really honored, really nervous, and just really excited to have this conversation with Vico Ortiz. Big fan. And I'll share a little bit about Vico. So Vico Ortiz, they, them, is a proud Latina, non-binary, gender fluid actor / activist born and raised in Puerto Rico. Their first breakthrough role was in the hit Amazon series Transparent, paving the way for recognized guest appearances in American Horror Story 1984, the Stars Award-winning series Vida, and a recurring role on the GLAAD-nominated freeform comedy Everything's Gonna Be Okay. And there's more. So Vico recently received a Queerties Award nomination for their series regular role in the award-winning digital series These Thems. In 2021, they starred as a series regular in the original Amazon Prime Video zombie thriller series, SOZ, Soldados or Zombies, playing U.S. military Sergeant Valencia, and a recurring role in the widely successful Mindy Kaling HBO Max original series, The Sex Lives of College Girls. This year has proven to be the biggest year yet for the rising star. Vico is one of the leads of the new independent musical feature film, Gaia de la Resistencia, and stars as a series regular playing Jim Bonifacia in the new critically acclaimed hit HBO Max comedy series, Our Flag Means Death. Created by David Jenkins with Academy Award winner Taika Waititi, executive producing, directing pilot episode, and starring as the infamous Pirate Blackbeard. So I'll turn it over to Vico. You want to say a few words before we jump into some conversation?
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for that introduction. And I'll add that, great, we'll get to be nervous and excited together. Yes. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes, nervous. I'm just like, are you sure? I feel like you've done this a bit, so. But, you know,
it never goes away. It never goes away. I call it, I mean, not for podcasts, but I call it the ghost pee. Every time before a performance, doesn't matter which one or how many times I've done it, I always get like this ghost pee because it feels like I want to go to the bathroom, but it's not real because when I do go, there's nothing. I have given it all. So I call it ghost pee. Anyway, but that's not happening right now. I'm just having like nice little tummy tickles.
I love that. I also love that you named the ghost bee because I didn't know there was a name for it, and that happens to me probably 3 or 4 times before.
Yay! I don't know if it's an official term. I've just been calling it for a while like that.
I think it's time to make it official, right?
Yes. You
Um,
heard it here first, folks.
Ghost bee, just the insider secrets, right? um,
Absolutely. So I just wanted to make sure to mention to everyone listening that we are recording via Zoom. So we're all in different places. So the audio might sound a little weird, but we're going to do our best to keep it as polished as all the other podcasts y'all listen to.
Love it.
but yeah, so Vico, let's dive into some questions or some conversation. But when again, I told this to Edric before, but when this was proposed, I was just like, can I be a part of this? Like, huge fan. Me and my friends have multiple like group chats talking about this show, how special it is about you, about the representation, and really thinking about as queer and as trans folks, we have very little minimal representation, and we often have to forge that like identity, that media, that communities for ourselves. And so I'm curious for you, what were your sort of like queer roots growing up? Did you have media, people, like what helped you sort of form your own identities and influence your desire to be in acting?
That is a lovely question because for the longest time, my desire to be an actor was very separate from my identity. Mainly because I didn't even know I was in a closet. I was so deep inside of it that it was everything was just going right over my head. Um, However, theater was an integral part of my upbringing. Both my parents are actors, so I spent many nights backstage and doing homework in changing rooms and just seeing the magic of storytelling unfold right before my eyes. But when it came to queer representation, the only ones that I would see were the very few openly gay cis men that were my parents' acting friends. So it wasn't until I moved to Los Angeles when I was 17, almost 18, that I started seeing more people and connecting with more people who were identifying as bisexual or lesbian. And that was, in the beginning, it was just sexual identities. So I didn't have any contact with anyone that was identifying as trans or non-binary or gender fluid. However, I knew that there was something about, when you start looking back, you're like, it was so obvious, but I was just not around it. I didn't see anything of other than the very cis, straight, normative that was my everyday life, and then the little sprinkles of gay men, and that was literally it, and it was barely talked about because in Puerto Rico a lot of that was like hush hush, which also that fed into, once I started questioning my sexuality, being scared of saying this out loud, because in Puerto Rico and a lot of Latin culture, they use this information to blackmail you or to dirty your name. A lot of the farandula magazines, like People en Español or whatever other magazines about gossip stuff, like they use these things to dampen the name of the artist, right? So I never saw it with something as if it was a positive thing. So when I started questioning my sexuality, for a while I thought maybe I'm just gonna have to keep this a secret, and that's terrible. So once I was like, this is messed up, I don't want to continue to feed into this narrative, I'm gonna be very public about who I love before if I become famous, just in case if that happens, it's not like all of a sudden I'm out holding hands with my partner and there's like paparazzi taking photos and then it's a whole situation. No, I'm already gonna be loud and proud before, and it's gonna be fine. But it was a conversation that I had to have with my family. My parents were super chill about me coming out to them, but when I had the conversation about I'm gonna be public, they were like, um, uh, this is your private life. And I was like, yeah, but your life is not. Like, I mean, what is that? I was, we had a lot of convos. They're all about it now. But anyway, that's when I started questioning how messed up these things were, how I was scared of being myself. And I couldn't, I was like, how is it that I can't be these two things at the same time? I went to Outfest with, at that time, my very first queer relationship. And I am in this film festival seeing queer people, queer filmmakers telling our stories, and we're being celebrated and we're being accepted and loved. And I was like, oh, I can be both things. I can be a queer actor, and I can also I can be queer and act. I don't have to like separate these two things. And not only that, but I can also continue telling our stories, and that's kind of when I was like, all right, here we go. We're gonna be very intentional about this. And yes, I'm gonna be doing a lot of queer roles, and I plan on doing queer roles for the rest of my life, because why? Why wouldn't I? And with our flag, when you have a period piece, right? And you have a queer character, it's like, yeah, we existed then and before, since the beginning of humanity. When you low-key like start looking into things, history was very queer, but we're totally trying to skip over those moments, but we've always been there. So I want to be part of that. I am part of that and continue to be part of that. Did I answer the question? I think I went on several tangents.
And you definitely you gave us the answer and more, which I love. So please just keep beating it.
Amazing.
I love
Went
it.
on a monologue here all of a
I
sudden.
mean, I'm here for it, right? Yes. Yeah. I mean, also just thinking, just like, you talked about being sort of like raised in the theater. I'm like, first of all, it's just like, I'm thinking like, what a queer upbringing. But then you're
Right?
like, it's still cis, even within that, it's
Mhm.
still cis and gay.
Oh, absolutely. And very much that there was a lot of the openly cis gay men were open within the community, but outside of it, it was like hush hush, because they were afraid of also losing work, or like performing straight cis man so they can land more roles, but never question like, what if we were to change this role into a gay man rather than a straight man, right? What if, like, let's start changing these roles and explore these nuanced relationships, right? Not keep telling the same heteronormative story. But I get it. There's a lot of fear. I mean, we're induced with fear since the moment we're born. You can't do this, you can't do that, you can't act like this because you were born this way, you can't act like that because you were born that way, you're not supposed to touch that, you don't, and it's like, all of a sudden we're afraid of being ourselves. And of course, theater has this like beautiful place where you can explore yourself. I mean, I've learned a lot about myself through theater. But it's about not just doing that, but then having that translate into our everyday lives, and not just let it be in the space. But it is a very scary threshold. I mean, I can sympathize to that. Do I think it's the best way forward? I don't think so, but I understand. I mean, fear is a great form of currency, unfortunately.
It's so true. I mean, it's just like, as you're naming these things we're scared of, I'm in my head picturing us like get like closed off. And we talk about a closet, like being secluded, and it's like, of course we kind of just like turn ourselves small, right?
Absolutely. I mean, that's the best way to manipulate people when they when they don't know who they are and they're just like following the herd. It's the best way. I mean, when you're someone who's in control and wants to gain more power, that's unfortunately what we learn to do, instead of actually letting people be autonomous and be themselves and love themselves. And I mean, how beautiful, I mean, utopian world, would be if everyone was born and given the chance to get to know themselves and people without all these stereotypes and structures, and actually cultivate sustainable relationships with everybody. But that's not the way society is currently structured. And it's meant for us to not be sustainable with ourselves and with people. It's meant for us to break down and forget who we are. So yeah. Wow, we got
Yeah, we got real deep.
We got real deep real quick.
I mean, you're touching on, I think, the beautiful part about queerness is that we get to dream up what we want liberation to look like for our lives, where our desires can lead us to. And we're right in the middle of the week against homophobia with the Zero campaigns. And this year's theme was I Choose Loving, because we know that states like Florida, all over the South and all over this country, they're targeting queer youth simply for existing. And it's things that just make no sense in the way that they're justifying them. Parental rights, we got to keep children safe or preserve biological gender. It's like you touched on it already. Gender has existed across the spectrum where people just were able to be who they were forever. So we're not doing anything different. The difference is now that more people are open about it. And you bring your queerness and your Latine forward to the forefront of everything that you do. And I think that's so beautiful and have so much respect for you for that. And I just wonder what kind of opportunities has this opened for you?
Well, I think I think that question stands. Like, what kind of opportunities has this opened up for you, as, navigating your gender and, your own culture?
This has been a journey that one thing led to another, led to another, led to another. Once I embraced the fact that I'm ever changing, ever learning, ever evolving, and was going to be intentional about doing that, in my career as an actor, the industry has also been shifting. I mean, there's still a lot that they need to work through, but it started shifting. And I was seeing it in the breakdowns, right? What's interesting, though, is that before the industry began shifting, because I was coming in to either cis men roles or cis women roles, I was coming into these auditions with this queer version, right, of either or. And I was the wild card, and it sometimes worked and I booked the role, and sometimes it didn't, like any other audition that happens. What happens is that once the industry was like, oh, we gotta add the non-binary box, the industry, because it's so used to people in boxes, was like, well, this is how non-binary should be. And then I was like, no. And it's also a check-in with myself to make sure that I'm coming into these roles authentically with my experience as a non-binary person and not try to fit the box of what the industry thinks non-binary is, which is interesting. Mind fuck. I don't know if I can cuss in this, but I just said the first one. Great, I got thumbs up. So yes, so in a beautiful way, because I am coming more authentically with myself, I am coming more authentically to these characters. So I am booking more because I have a stronger sense of who I am. So that's beautiful, right? Also, aside from the mainstream industry, I have been very intentional about collaborating with the queer community, because I am seeing all of us that we're growing within the independent film industry and then taking over the mainstream one, right? So now a lot of the folks that I collaborated with in short films or web series 5-6 years ago, we're now writing in mainstream TV shows. We're now producing in mainstream TV shows. We're directing mainstream TV shows. We're acting in these shows as well. So I'm seeing us grow. And I think that whomever's listening to this, right, nurture and cultivate your relationships with the independent filmmakers. We're all in this together. We are all in this I don't want to call it fight, but I'm going to call it fight, in this fight for authentic representation. So investing in every step of the way, you're going to start seeing, and it's not going to be immediate. This industry, things take time. So invest in every single one of us, invest in you, and then meet people, connect genuinely with people, and collaborate with everyone that you love collaborating with or love their work. And then you're going to start seeing all of us. Like, you know, I mean, anytime someone opens a little bit of the door, keep it as open as long as you can, and then whistle and get everybody in, and then open the other door. And then, like, maybe, you know, you stayed on that door for a little bit and you were able to get some people in who got two more doors open, and they whistled to you, and then you run to the other one. We're literally just trying to open doors for each other until we get to the top, which is, I think, executive producing, and there's probably some more top roles, but we're gonna get them all, and that's the plan. That's the gay agenda.
I love it. Just like, you know, a queer takeover, like, let's do it, you know, like.
Yeah, I mean, literally one thing leads to the next, and being in community. I think that the gist of it is like, this is a community and we're here for each other, and really continue to nurture those safe spaces where we can be creative with each other, and yeah, to have that takeover.
Yes, definitely here for it. You know, when my partner is the one who suggested to watch the show, my partner's a non-binary femme. I'm trans. Like, they're just like, let's watch this pirate show, and I was like, a pirate? Like, I don't like. And it's just like, when you think of pirates, it's like very masculine. I'm just like, don't know. And like you said, it's a period piece, but we get to design what that means for us, you know. And here you were, and we're just like, and then we're seeing these storylines unravel. You know, I looked you up, and you're just like, to know that here was a, you know, non-binary character played by a non-binary person was just like, oh my God, here it is, you know. And then I read that, you know, there were non-binary writers on the show, you know, which is incredible. So like you said, we're taking everybody with us. So I'm curious, like, what that relationship was like for you on set around this, like, masculine dominated, because even a lot of the cast are you know, men or masculine, and that relationship with the writers.
Okay. So yes, you are correct. Even though with all the diversity in the show, I mean, yes, it's very dominated by cis men. And I am used to being in queer and women dominated spaces. So I was, not gonna lie, a little nervous coming into it, because I was like, I'm gonna be with these people for 4 months. What's it gonna be like, right? And I know coming into most mainstream big budget shows, I tend to be the very first non-binary person people meet. Maybe not the first, maybe they've met other people before, but they just didn't know, they weren't aware. So, and I'm very much like, hi, I'm Vico, my pronouns are they, them, theirs. What's your name? What are your pronouns? And because I'm doing my best to normalize it for myself too, you know. I'm in that. I mean, it's all, I'm learning as I go as well. I feel like a lot of people expect me to be like, you know, everything, and I'm like, actually don't. I'm just stumbling through with everybody, but you know, tending myself with care and love through the process, and through that, actually, because I asked people's pronouns, I had several people who came after and were like, no one's ever asked for my pronouns before, and I wanna thank you for that. And I know I said these pronouns before, but I wanna change them to these. And I was like, beautiful. Thank you so much for letting me know and giving me the update. And having other folks like say multiple pronouns in front of their colleagues and be like, wow, no one's ever asked. They just assume these pronouns and no one's asked, and I get to now share these pronouns, and now they all heard that, you know. And I'm like, and I will use all of them with you. So that was really beautiful. And with all of that, right, a lot of the members already were versed in what non-binary meant, which was really nice. And when it came to getting to know each other, right, in between takes, in between scenes, and like post shoot hangouts, when it came, I mean, our conversations, I always love talking about gender and structures and sexuality and everything, because I love it. It's great. It's beautiful. And when it came to them asking questions, it wasn't with the angle of trying to dissect me. It was actually genuine curiosity for themselves. So that really created a space for everyone to feel safe in their journey of exploration, what it is to be masculine, what it is to be feminine, what it is to be a person. And that, you know, if you're identifying as a cis man, that's beautiful. And you can reclaim whatever that means to you in a way that doesn't necessarily fall into the societal expectations. Which was really, really cool to have that in that set. And when it came to having the non-binary writers, I've only met a few of them. I guess like 2 out of 3, not too bad. Also COVID, because I mean, it was a lot of like, one of them I knew from before, so I didn't meet them like on set. The other one I saw more frequently, because they were also on set almost every day. But knowing that there were 3 non-binary writers in the room was so refreshing, and it took so much unneeded responsibility from my shoulders, because again, when I come into projects, normally I'm the non-binary actor, but there are no non-binary or trans writers in the room. So I come in and I have to be like, actually, this wording is a little not really aligning. And it's like, I have to advocate for myself and on top of it, be a performer. So in this case, I already had people advocating for me. I wasn't the only one, and advocating for Jim's storyline. I mean, and whenever I read the script, all I really wanted to do was just add more Spanish, and was able to focus more on the nuances of Jim's story versus having to like, double work and look at the script and be like, this is not really, and then have the awkward like conversation, and then be like, hopefully they don't fire me from like saying something. So having them on was just really, really, really nice, and I was able to just exist and give Jim my voice, which was really, really cool. Yeah.
I mean, what a beautiful thing too, right? That like, this is also so rare that like you get to just exist and do your job that you're paid to do instead of taking on all this extra labor. Like, it's rare and it's beautiful. And it's just like, we want more. You deserve more. Other non-binary and trans and queer actors, in the field deserve more, to just exist, right?
Everybody, I'm so freaking lutely. I mean, I'm very happy with the 3, but I'm obviously would be delighted if we had more people producing, a director, also on set in the crew. I feel like we're still very much like finding that diversity in front of the camera, which is great, and I'm so here for it. But behind the camera, I mean, the crew is still very much cis-het, able-bodied white male, and I want to see diversifying that. It's like, people, we can do better. And that goes to a lot of the productions. I mean, 98% of the productions are very much that. Yeah, we still got a lot of work to do.
But it's happening, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's definitely happening. And I am seeing more and more of it. And it is because we're starting to see, more diversity in front of it, right? And you're having people like me. I'm not the only one who's like, hey, we got to change it, and a lot of actors like me are dipping toes in production, and then we're changing how production looks like, right? So yeah, there are changes happening.
Yeah. Not fast enough, but we'll keep going, right?
Just like absolutely, absolutely.
That nudge,
And I'm sure also what I say now in 5 years, I'm gonna have to be like, check myself and be like, oh yeah, that we're gonna do that differently now, right? Like what I thought 5 years ago was the way to go, ain't anymore. So let's try something different. It's always about checking in.
For sure. I mean, yeah, just like a good like self accountability. Like, am I doing what I promised I would do, or that I am asking of others to do? Like, we have to make sure that we are also fulfilling those things, right?
100%, yes.
So we've talked about, the cast, the film, but I'm interested in learning more about Vico. Like, what was it? We talked a little about your family and upbringing, but what, outside of like the theater and your parents, did you have your own chosen queer family? Like, what did that look like for you growing up? Did you have a support system? Yeah.
Yes, I have a beautiful community here that I've grown a lot with. I have changed a lot as a person and what type of people I want to be around. I uh I used to go out a lot, and I realized that I was making a lot of superficial connections. And I mean, I was a bartender for a very long time, so like working in nightlife, I was like all up in that, right? But then I realized I was like, I want to have stronger connections with people that I, learn from, and they get to learn from me, and we get to grow together and make mistakes and hold safe spaces, right? So, in the past several years, I've created this beautiful community of people that are so beautifully loving, and we're exploring friendships in a way that are outside also of the expectations of the heteronormative societal friendship expectations, because for a long time I also was like, I can't do this with a friend, I can't hold hands with my friend, I can't cuddle with a friend, I can't go to the because I always saw these things in a very binary, like, this is for partners, this is for friends, right? And then I was like, why am I dividing these things? Why am I not allowing myself to explore my friendships in a way that's outside of this very binary thinking? And so, yeah, it's been really beautiful. I have an incredible community here in LA, and I'm creating one in Puerto Rico as well. Because once I started meeting people in Puerto Rico and getting to know them there, I was like, wow, this is also a part of me that I have been missing, right? As much as I've been in LA for so long, and I have my friends here and the people that have known me for a very long time, also for a short amount of time, whichever way. I don't have that many Puerto Rican friends in Los Angeles who are queer. So it was either like queer friends, not Puerto Rican, but not queer. So once I was in Puerto Rico a few years ago and started to meet the queer community over there, something in me clicked. And I was like, oh, yeah, I definitely want to nurture these friendships as well, because I get to speak my language and speak my language in a queer way, and I get to explore parts of myself that I don't get to explore as often when I'm in Los Angeles. So yeah, a lot of that community as well comes from the Now Ever Artists acting class. I don't know if you know about it. Rain Valdez is the teacher. She's incredible. I've met a lot of amazing folks in that class, and I was able to find a lot of my voice there too. She was very encouraging about queering it the fuck up, and it was really cool to have that, in my journey as an actor and as a queer person. And yeah, I'm like in a very different place than what I was in the past. I mean, the pandemic is, because we're still in it, um, is not fabulous. But if there is a silver lining, I was able to really reassess how I want to connect with myself and connect with the people around me, and have deeper connections with my friends and my family and my partners.
I mean, I love it. I think that's something that's so beautiful about the queer community, is that not only do we get to sort of design what's the right fit for us, and like these ideas of like possibilities, like you talked about, well, I didn't know this existed. And once I did, I was just like, that's what I'm pursuing. It's like these light bulb moments, and that these lessons are for everybody. Like these ideas around platonic romantic relationships, like we're depriving ourselves of so much joy by things we never even like asked for, right?
100%. Oh my goodness. During the, how do I even, how do I even tackle this? I I didn't have a strong sense of self for a long time, because for most part of my life I had the on button essentially super glued, and I was constantly occupying myself with work, both with acting work, or at the time when I was bartending, so I could pay my rent and all that stuff. And in my relationships, uh, any relationship, but my approach wasn't sustainable. I was doing my best to follow toxic monogamy structures, right? You can have healthy monogamy. I'm not saying you can't have it, but I was following the not so great one where I wanted to fulfill my partner's every single need. And then I kept myself silent or bottle up whatever I didn't feel like it aligned. So I didn't create any fights. And then obviously all that starts to like not starts to bottle up and then be like, oh, wait a minute, now I'm feeling resentment and I don't know what's happening. So I started to realize that I was locking myself out of myself, essentially. And I was betraying myself. I was not advocating for myself. I was just locking myself out. And I didn't realize this was happening because I was so busy. I mean, again, we're like feeding into this like busy culture. It's so good to be busy. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy that you're busy. Now I don't want to flex that. I don't want to flex that I'm busy. I want to take time to rest. I'm very intentional about the time that I take to rest. And during the pandemic, I changed obviously once the pandemic happens, I don't have any more of that external stimulation to distract me from me. So I have no other option but to look within and genuinely ask myself, what do I want? How do I want to take care of myself? What makes me feel good and safe within my body? And I changed my routine in the mornings. I wake up and first thing I do is drink water. I journal, I meditate, I do yoga. I have this cute little like coffee making routine and shower, and then I look at my emails. So it's not the first thing I look in the mornings. And throughout that process, I started to chip away from the walls that I had built around my heart. And because also this industry, something that I was talking about with someone a few days ago, this industry is really cutthroat. It's really brutal. And it's constantly expected of you to pour your heart out. In every single audition, I mean, I'm speaking from an actor point of view, in every single audition, you're pouring your heart out and you get rejected, oftentimes more oftentimes than I can possibly count. And then you pour your heart out, you get rejected, you put it back in, and then you put it back out, and it's constantly that. And I got numbed from that situation. So I created this really thick wall around it. And once I got to my heart and I touched it, everything started to pour out. And that's when I was like, okay, I gotta see a therapist. So I recommend therapy. It's great. Everybody should have it. It doesn't matter where you're at mentally. I think it's fabulous. And that's when I was able to give words to what I want, what I need, how to advocate for myself, how to be gentle with myself when I don't. I am a human being. I have patterns. I am getting better at noticing them, but I still follow through in some of them. And I'm like, okay, let's not fall into the other pattern of beating myself up. Let's be gentle about this and learn about this process, but also let those feelings happen. And with that, monogamy is great. I think there's beautiful ways to follow a healthy monogamous relationship, but polyamory really resonated with me. Especially solo polyamory, because it's a reminder that I have a relationship with myself. So I can lean in and connect with someone and also have autonomy, and I can be interdependent and independent. And after many years of flying solo, like not even solo polyamory, just like being closed off from the world, I opened up, and I have a beautiful anchor partner in Puerto Rico that I love and adore. And it's been a very beautiful and healing experience to practice this love with them, that's very intentional and cultivating and nurturing something that's sustainable for the both of us, and knowing that we're both independent people, that we're choosing to be, you know, every day with each other and sharing time, which is something that in the past I was like, that's never gonna happen to me. And here we are. I essentially had a whole, like, you wanted to get to know me, here you go.
Is what I wanted. So I was just like, I mean, I was not going to stop you. So I'm just like,
Yeah, that was great. Really touched on so many things.
Love it. I'm glad.
One thing I am curious about is, like, you've talked about Spanish being your first language, right? And so much of what queer people have done is made up our own words for our relationship styles, for our identities and expressions. How do you navigate just like talking about all this in Spanish with your family in Puerto Rico or other folks, or is that a boundary you have not
No,
to do
it's
that?
great. I love it. It's my favorite thing, honestly. I mean, I've been out to my parents and my brother. I mean, my whole family knows, but I have a very open dialogue with my family and my brother, because also, again, the way that the way that we talk to each other is with genuine, like, we love each other and we want to continue to get to understand each other, and it's not very much like, well, that can't be, I don't get, it's like, oh, interesting, so it's kind of like this but kind of like that, like, it's finding how we get to, it's like we both have different languages and we're finding the middle ground to, like, oh, you get it now. And it's really fun. I very much enjoy chatting with my parents about it and my brother, because I find ways to be like, yeah, it's like you when you do this. And it's like, it's kind of being like, you're all like, we're all queer, come on. Like, it's it's just me trying to be like, come on, y'all. But it's yes. So how do I navigate these terminologies with my family? What's really funny is that the one that they've been the most like, how does that work, right? It has been with relationships. It's been with when I've mentioned, hey, I'm polyamorous, so like right now I have one romantic partner, but that, you know, could change. I could have two, I could have maybe three, and same with them, you know, like you might meet a partner that has other partners, and that's just what's up, right? I know, and they're like mind blown. They're like, what do you mean they're all cheating on each other? And I'm like, no, everybody's consensually in this relationship, we're all choosing to be with each other and we know what's going on. And then I talk about how, like, we've always, you know, throughout history, especially, I mean, in Latin American culture, it's, at least with my family, the wording that my grandmas would use, it was always like, yeah, men are gonna have more than one, you know, but they'll have the wife and then they'll have someone in some other part of the island, you know, that they have children with. But I'm like, that's cheating, right? I mean, like, that's, no one's consenting to this. Whereas like now it's like, oh, you have this partner and everyone is like aware, or that this is what they're signing up for, and they can very easily be like, actually, that doesn't align with me anymore, and they are more than welcome to walk away. Versus then it was like the wife was scared of saying something, because then, you know, she'll get kicked off and then won't have a house to live in. I mean, everything was just all about ownership. So it was just awful in all ways, in every single way. But it's been really cute to see, you know, explain to my mom, like, what does anchor partnership mean? What does nesting partner mean? What is, for example, when I told my mom about what an anchor partner meant, and I was like, yeah, me and my partner have chosen to be anchor partners for each other. And my mom was like, so does that mean they're your number one? And I'm like, not really. It just, because I can have an anchor friend as well. That's why I love about the wording of anchor, is that you can have an anchor friend, you can have an anchor family member, you can have an anchor romantic partner, and that doesn't take away from any other partner that you might be with as well. And then with nesting, right? Like you don't have to be anchor and also nesting with this person. That doesn't take away from the validity of that relationship. Nesting meaning living with each other. So I can have an anchor partner, someone that I feel safe with and nurtured by, and I don't have to live with them in order to make that relationship valid. And I can have a friend that I nest with because we're great nesting partners, like we're great living together, but I don't have to have them romantically involved in my life. And that doesn't make that, they're all beautiful and valid and diverse, and they have different purposes and meanings. And it's always good to check in every step of the way, right? You don't fall into the relationship escalator where it's like, well, you're now starting to date, and then you say you're in love, and then you move in together, and then you get married, and then you have children, and then it's like every step of the way it's like, oh, I feel safe with you and I feel this very deep emotional connection with you. Do we want to talk about naming this an anchor partnership? Beautiful, right? After several years, I feel like I want to nest. Do we want to try nesting? Is that something that we want to try? No? Great. Yes? Great. It's not going to make it any less or more of a valid relationship. And it's not expected. I think that's the main thing. Like these steps are not like expected steps. Every step is a check-in, like whether it's up to the side to, whatever direction the step is, there's always a check-in. So yeah, it's interesting to have those with the family because it was just assumed. Everything is assumed. And now I'm putting in their minds, don't assume, learn, and give yourself that chance to like learn something new and not be like, oh, this person looks this way, so they gotta be this, they gotta be that. And it's like, you don't know this person, get to know them before you go ahead and put a bunch of labels. So that's been a fun journey.
Yeah, that is so inspiring that someone's family is taking the time to really learn these terms. And I'm assuming it in English and in Spanish, and we're going to have to put out a little language guide with this podcast too, so that people can like read the definitions of nesting and recap all these terms. So if you have a cheat sheet, a list in Spanish too, we'd love that.
But... Oh my God, that would be so fun. Yeah, I mean, I love it. Because yeah, explaining these things in Spanish is also a whole nother level of of deconstruction. But it's been really fun. And I am really fortunate that both my parents and my brother have been really open to all of the things. And I'm slowly like having one-on-ones with the rest of my family because I do feel that they're starting to have their brain massaged in a really beautiful way. I had an event a few weeks ago where I have my little tie and my whole little thing, and then I did my nails, and I had a FaceTime call with my aunt a few days later, and she was like, I saw your photos of the event. And I was like, thank you. And she's like, you look fabulous. And I was like, thanks. And you did your nails. And I was like, yeah. She was like, you're making me think. And I'm like, I think in her brain, just the fact that I don't identify with a woman, therefore I am not allowed to have anything feminine about me. And I'm like, no, that's not how it works. But I'm curious to have a one-on-one with her soon and be like, what are you thinking about? What's making you process things differently? And show her that rules are out the window.
We're going to do a follow-up after that conversation.
Yes.
Bring you back and be like, so give us some tips. How do you go?
I love them getting all frazzled with gender and expression.
Yeah, as tias go, so does the world, right? If we can get our tias to understand, then I think it's just a slow process for the rest of the communities.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I love that because it's like, I think so much of the messaging, I think, in our culture is also that like, you don't break the norm, you know, like it's just like this is the standard, or that these other possibilities don't exist, but also that like we don't have people who aren't affirming in our lives who are from our family. It's like my mother is incredibly affirming, always has been supportive. Like my queer friends would come over and she'd make dinner and she was like their little house mom, but it's just like they exist in our community. Like it's just, it's not, you know, and I think we need more stories of like how these parents and these family members can say like, we can, you know, this can be our culture, this can be our child or our family member, and we can still love them, and we can also learn. Because it's just some of that negative messaging only reinforces that like, no, this you have to have a divide.
Absolutely. And it's so, I think the more they see that, whether it's in media or wherever it is, because my mom, bless her, she has not been scared about talking about me in wherever she goes. And it's really because in English you can talk about your kid and whatever, and like people, it's, the language is fairly neutral as it comes. But then in Spanish, the second she says mi hije, she uses the a instead of the a or the o, then it's like, what is that? And then she is like, my kid's non-binary, right? And because of that, she has found other parents and mothers who also have non-binary kids, and it's like not this like scared thing you can't talk about, this taboo conversation. So exactly that she's been able to be like, oh, I'm not the only one who has an NB child, and been able to, you know, talk to other parents about it and not be scared about chatting about these things, because yeah, we're everywhere, we're really everywhere.
And you know, the takeover continues. So
The
you know,
takeover indeed
stay
continues.
tuned, right? I love that. I love that. One thing that came up, I think, kind of related to the show, but also to your life, is that, you know, in the show, you know, you're raised by nuns, you know, which is an interest, you know, and it's an interesting storyline within itself around you as a, you know, in your character and the nuns and how they accept you. So I'm curious, like, did religion and faith have any role in your own upbringing, or what does that look like for you, if any? Maybe you know, you were the theater kid, so I don't know.
No, I did have a pretty, the beginning of my life was pretty religious. And a lot of it was because, again, it's assumed, and you're born and you're get baptized, and then you do the communion is the first, there's yeah, baptized, and then the communion, I forget, because I stopped after communion and I didn't do the confirmation, because that was one of the first things that I began questioning, was religion. My parents have had to deal with me since I was a very small little being. It's in my natal chart, apparently. There's like the thing with the photo and all the planets, and apparently like I have like 2 planets on the bottom side, and that means that I'm gonna be changing a lot of like traditional mindsets in the household, and I've effectively have done that since the beginning. Good times, fulfilling my destiny. Anyway, yes, so I even have a nun in my family. My dad's side of the family, I know, and she's actually, it's really sweet. I actually got to see her like a month ago when I went to visit, and I hadn't seen her in years, and she's such a fan. And I like told her about the show, and then I have like these like assassin nuns, and she was a little scandalized about that, but also like really happy for me. But yes, very religious upbringing. I mean, every Sunday church, all of the things. And then I began questioning the church, and I grew up Catholic. That was the religion that was given to me. And after my communion, yeah, because that was the thing, like the version of God that my mom and dad painted was really loving. And then I start taking classes, and then the picture they were painting of God was a bit more scary. And I was like, I don't know how I feel about this guy. And I don't like that if I don't think this way, I'm gonna have some sort of lightning come over through the roof and murder me. So that was like, I don't know if I want to continue this. And then that was the very first, like, I guess, like, coming out conversation to my parents. I was like, I don't ever want to go to church anymore. And I don't know if I believe in God. And I remember I was like, 9 or something like that. I remember I was like 9 and I was having this conversation, and I remember saying those words for the first time and like looking up, like waiting for the lightning to strike, and then nothing happened. And I was like, great, I guess like we're still safe. I guess I'll have to find out when I die if I burn in hell. I was a very dramatic child. I still am. But yeah, after that, my nuclear family, like mom, dad, and brother, our perspective on religion started shifting. My dad started noticing also his societal how do I like the way people were treating him because he was no longer going to church every Sunday was different. So he was also like, we were all in our own way kind of being like, interesting, like our societal status is like weirdly shifting because we're not adhering to these expectations of like the religion that we're supposed to be following. So that made a shift within the family. And then, and yeah, I mean, I feel myself, I'm like more spiritual than anything. I'm not like, I don't believe in nothing. I do believe in the magic that surrounds all of us, and then we're all connected one way or another, and that we're all a reflection of each other. Yeah, but yeah, religious, I thought it was so funny when I like did the nun thing. I was like, this is so great. And I love that Nana is like more upset about Jim not fulfilling their assassination list than like Jim being like, I go by Jim now. Nana was like, great, but like, did you kill the rest of the Siete Gallos? And Jim was like, fuck. Did not do that. So I love that. And I've been seeing a lot of like Latina people being like, wow, it's so cool to see, like seeing an elder or someone that is of Jim's life, who's, an equivalent of a grandparent, accepting them for who they are, but then really being upset because I raised you to kill and you did it.
I give you one job.
Truly, it was like, I gave you food and shelter and a knife, and you couldn't do the job right. How dare you? Yeah. Which also is very, I mean, that like guilt of like, you didn't fulfill your destiny is like sort of in there too. But yeah, that's sort of my like religious journey, I guess.
Yeah, a lot of us are raised Catholic. It's so hard to let go of those ideas for some families, because you mentioned how power and religion and machismo go hand in hand. And it's like so many people are afraid of us because they're afraid that they'll lose some sort of power if they accept that we exist, and then B, also accept that a little bit of us isn't every single person out there, right?
Very much so. Very, very much so. What's also really interesting is that both my grandmas, I mean, they're both really old now, and one of them has Alzheimer's, and I've come out to her every time, and it's beautiful. And what's really interesting with that, right? They're both, in the best of ways, God-fearing Catholics. They love saying that. And me coming out to them was less intense and more accepting than me not confirming to the religion, which I think it's fascinating. Both of them were more upset about me not confirming. And when I would told the very first coming out, when I said I was gay, they were like, cool. One of them was like, it's cool to be gay these days. And I was like, sure, I'll take that. But when I've come out to the one who has Alzheimer's as non-binary, and I tell her my pronouns and tell her my new name and all that good stuff, it's been really cool to have her listen and be like, oh, that's interesting, that's really beautiful. Like me explaining like, oh yeah, I let myself explore my femininity and my masculinity in my own terms, and I not adhere to the societal expectations of what this means and how it should be expressed. And I've combined this name with this name. I think you're gonna like it. And she's like, oh yeah, wow, that's really nice. Whereas, like, I mean, again, and then I have to explain it again, and her reaction is always been very welcoming, which is really interesting to me, that is like fine, but then me being like, actually, I'm not gonna confirm. They were like, you're gonna go to hell for that. Not gonna go to hell for the other thing? Cool, thanks.
Gotta love our elders, and I'm so glad that you have the positive Groundhog Day and then the kind of funny one too, that right after that.
100%, yes. I mean, we're human beings, or we're filled with contradictions. So I think that's the beauty of that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I love how accepting your family is and how just so much of an inspiration you continue to be. And I know that there's a lot of people that see you as that way. And unfortunately, we know that for a lot of Latino LGBTQ youth, they might not have the same just openness in their families. And just wondering what advice you'd give to someone who is in just the throes of looking for acceptance and not getting it.
I'd say you are valid no matter what. If you're not able to dress the way you want to dress, if you're not able to use the names or pronouns that you want to use, you are still valid. You are living, you are breathing, you are existing, and you are valid and necessary in this organism that we call Earth and human beings. And we see you, and because you are part of us, like, we feel you in our breaths, in our collective breaths and heartbeats. And even if the people around you may be oblivious, you are seeing yourself, and when you look at yourself in the mirror, you're there and you're existing, and you're beautiful and handsome and gorgeous. And yeah, F the others.
Oh, I got teary-eyed. That was so beautiful.
Aw, cute times.
Yes, love it, love it. Yeah, and I think, that's part of the representation, right? Is to, like, that, kind of full circle in this conversation is, that the possibilities. I think you being on screen, of people saying like, oh, this exists and I can create my own version of this for myself, and say that, just the conversation around these communities you've built up in Los Angeles and Puerto Rico, like, you're just like, we can build this for ourselves, and we exist, and we're finding each other in really beautiful ways. And it gets hard for the youth, when they're just like, there's no way out, right? But that's a nice thing about, I think, like, the entertainment field is like, we can be in our homes and feel trapped, and then we see something on screen, and just like, oh, it's like infiltrating the household, like these.
Truly, it mind boggles me that like dystopian almost feel of, like, the outside, like, legislatures are like, no, but then, like, in your computer and on your phone, on your TV, you're able to access this incredibly validating content. It's like, what is happening? But at least we do have access to that, right? And whether it's through podcasts or commercials or prints or TV shows or movies or short films, we have each other, and we're here.
Yeah. So I know, like, there's so much, like, fan art, there's so many messages, I've seen so many TikTok videos, all that stuff. Is there any sort of, like, thing you've come across, a video or a message from, like, a fan that's really stuck with you? Anything really impactful, or what that's even been like for you?
I think you said it before, and I think it's a collective of fan messages that have that similar theme of people feeling they've felt empowered by the show and or by Jim to stand in their truth and tell their loved ones who they are, and showing them that they can be accepted and be celebrated and loved by exactly who they are. And that is the common theme on most, if not all, the messages that I've received is um, people either feeling empowered to stand in their truth, also with themselves, being like, I have been questioning this for a while and I didn't really know if I was alone, and then whether they were seeing the show and then found me, and I do my best to talk about as much as possible about my experience and stumble through my experience because we're all, trying to figure each other out. That's kind of what it is. And them seeing, oh yeah, I'm not alone in this questioning journey. And I can be accepted in this questioning journey. And I don't have to have it all figured out. Because I think that's something really beautiful that gets handled in the show is that oftentimes queer, trans, non-binary characters are either the educators on the show or everything around their story is about how confusing it all is, and then everybody's having a confusing time, and it's just not fabulous. But then you have this, and it's like, I just know I'm not a mermaid and I'm just Jim. And they're like, got it. Okay, great. And then move on, right? And their storyline doesn't revolve around them figuring it out who they are. Because I think that's, part of it too is just like, I just know that I just want to be called this, and I don't need to have it all figured out to be validated and loved and accepted. Because people are just like, I have to know it all. And it's like, you don't have to, honestly. We're in a constant process of unlearning and unpacking and relearning and deprogramming. So, you're more than welcome to be loved. You deserve to be loved every step of the way of that unpacking and questioning.
Definitely. I think that came up quite a bit, just like this idea of questions. Like, what are we asking ourselves, allowing ourselves to even question what's in front of us, what's been told to us, these boxes we've been put in. And I think, and like media is such a powerful sort of like vehicle for those questions, in terms of just like characters and roles and responsibility, or just like seeing like different people on screen that reflect us and our experiences, and just like, hey, this is interesting. What does that mean for me? Is really powerful.
Yeah, and I think it's great for you don't have to be trans or non-binary to ask yourself these questions. And I think the show, apart from Jim, many other characters that give you that like chance of like, oh, yeah, I can question myself, even if I'm 40 or whatever, like whatever that is, however that looks like. So yeah.
Yeah, and I love it. It's true. We all should be, right? Just like we really all should be, because we should all be evolving or want to evolve, and just like it's better for ourselves and the people who are in our life. But yeah, so I think we're about to wrap up, but so we have one question for you, and you've kind of spoken on this, but I really want to know, like, what is this for you? So you've talked about, this idea of like executive producer, but like, what would be your dream role project? Like, you just get to run with something. Like, what would that look like for you?
Oh, goodness gracious. Okay. There's so many things. All right. So we're going to go with the real basic one, which is not so basic, but it's basic. I'm a massive nerd and I love Star Wars, and I've said I would love to be some sort of dark Jedi. But obviously, right? Not just me, right? I want to explore the whole world of, it's freaking Star Wars. There are galaxies and galaxies, and we're still falling into the cis het normative. Come on, people. Hello. So yes, I feel like absolutely we could like take something from the Star Wars universe and like create a beautiful utopian universe of a bunch of queer people of all flavors and have us all in there and have a great time. And with that, there are so many stories that I want to tell. There are so many friends that I know that are incredible writers that I cannot wait to be an executive producer for these things, right? And like continue to open doors and tell these stories and have more and more people involved that are from the community. So yeah, as like a production side, I am starting to fill the shoes of an executive producer, and then as a jumpy actor, I would love to have a lightsaber. I really love to have a lightsaber and use the force. I think it'd be great. I think it'd be a good time. And just be surrounded by beautiful queer people or
I mean, I am here for when I was at
Yes.
9, I was Princess Leia for Halloween and had
Yes.
this really long hair. My mom wrapped it up in these coils for me, and it was just like and I had a lightsaber, and it was like this beautiful thing. And it's also like, this is fiction. We can make it. You can be so queer, So, where do we need to sign the campaign? Get this on track for you.
Give queers their
Yes.
lightsabers.
Yes, I feel like, I mean, I've said it many, many times now, and I think it's like manifesting. I think the universe is listening and is like, okay, let's see what we can do. So yeah, yeah, queers in the Star Wars world. Here we go.
Amazing. Can't wait for it.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for this incredible, really meaningful and sweet conversation. Loved getting to know more about you and your upbringing and your process and what that's looking like on set, and also all that's ahead, because I mean, we all need it. Like we're like craving it. So thank you for just like quenching all of that for us. Yes,
Thank you. So grateful for being here. I really appreciate it.
Yes,
This has been wonderful. Great. Thank you.
And
well,
sorry.
Is there anything we need to say as an outro, Carlos?
For us to mention, you can subscribe to the podcast through Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and the Hands United YouTube channel will be up. And we're excited for the words of Vico to spread wide.
Yes, this will also be on our Zero Homophobia website for 2022. So can't wait to get it on there as soon as possible and for the world to see all this.
Yes, so much love, Vico.
Thank you.
Do I have permission to take a screenshot?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's get cute. Ready? All right, I'm taking it. Done.
Cute.
Awesome.
I'm gonna pause this recording. There we go.
Yeah.
Oh goodness, yes. Oh wow. Oh, what an absolute delight.
Joaquin, you're on mute.